Rabbanit Sarna and Rabbi David Wolkenfeld. Shalom and welcome to the Straw Hat. We are the official podcast of Anshe Shalom B'nai Israel Congregation, an Orthodox community in the beautiful Lakeview neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois. This week's episode contains a discussion about our return to Minyan. Very exciting. It's different. It's in the parking lot. It's socially distanced. Everyone's wearing masks, but we'll be talking about it. And then we'll also say a little bit about motherhood and welcoming a child into the world in the time of COVID. And yeah, it's so exciting to be back here with you all. And I hope you enjoy the episode.
So welcome back to the Straw Hat. Welcome back to welcome back to Anshe Shalom. Not only is your maternity leave officially over, but you also were at the shul or adjacent to the shul for tefillah for the first time in many months. So welcome, and how was that?
It was great. I think I've mentioned on the podcast like many times before that tefillah b'tzibur has been part of my daily practice, since I was since like people in my class at Maimonides became B'nai Mitzvah such that we could have a minyan. So like sometime in middle school, and not going to minyan for such a long time was really weird and tough and not good for my neshama. So I actually went to the first time that we had tefillah at ASBI, even while my maternity leave was still going strong. So it was great. And I mean, listen, like it's still super weird. Davening in a parking lot, that actually didn't bother me at all. Like, I don't know, at camp, we often davened outside or like pick up minyanim are often in weird places. Like that wasn't the part that felt weird. Social distancing and masks were like much weirder. Normally, like when you're davening together with a bunch of people, you want to like, I don't know, I love like being in tight spaces and like you hear everyone like, making noise around you. And that for me was like, something I missed about this, but I don't know, like it's okay. It's still better.
However far apart you were even farther in your living room, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It's not, like it's still many, many steps in the right direction. And also it was just so good to like see shul people in the flesh. Like we've kind of gotten, we've gotten little bits of people here and there. I thank God people have been dropping off food for us, which was so nice and so massively appreciated. And so we've kind of seen some people that way or passed them on walks or whatever, but to kind of gather to do a shul thing in person, like that hasn't happened since Purim, which is such a long time ago.
Yeah. It's a very, very long time ago, and it's nice that it's returned to our community and to many other communities. And please God, we'll figure a way to keep this going in a way that's safe and responsible.
Right, like that's exactly what it is. Like that's the crazy thing is you don't think about davening as like a high risk activity, but like it is, right? Like that's what's crazy about it.
Yeah. It's really, when you read the lists of dangerous things in the time of COVID, the type of tefillah that we took for granted, and didn't take for granted, that we celebrated and appreciated for, years and years in our shul and for centuries in other shuls, is really one of the most like combination of some of the most dangerous things that there is. And it's like a whole different evaluation. I was also thinking as you were talking about distancing, one of my teachers, I don't want to quote him because I might be misremembering, but I think said something to the effect of the way of creating an environment of spirituality is by bringing people closer together, right? Like singing and coordinated breathing when everyone sings together and just like close together and like packed in a tight space. Like think of some of the really intense, I think of like a Tish or even just like a very vibrant Shabbat tefillah experience where like there's a lot of people sitting close together, and we're now like just spreading people out and spacing them apart, and we're discouraging singing and just all in the effort to keep us alive and prevent viral spread. But it's really it's like really counter to everything we thought we knew about what we ought to be trying and striving for in a shul context.
Yeah. And also it's like awkward. Like that's another piece of it. Like talking to someone one-on-one when they're, 6 to 10 feet away from you is awkward. And then in a group where everyone's standing in like a massive, space is I don't know, like the pre and post tefillah banter is also, like really awkward.
Yeah, well, I guess we're officially discouraging pre and post tefillah banter, so that's that awkwardness. So get people come and do daven and try to make the most of it and have it be a meaningful experience, but then be on your merry way. There's some interesting halachic sort of discussions that have been developed really across the world as congregations and communities have responded to COVID. In I guess every stage of this pandemic has had libraries of halachic analysis and shuvot written, but this stage of reconvening minyan under social distancing environments has also led to a number of different interesting halachic discussions. Among them, there seems to be a medical prioritization of limiting the duration of tefillah. We want to limit the exposure we have, like the longer you are together with other people, especially indoors in an enclosed space, but I think outdoors as well. The longer you're sort of standing with the same people, the greater risk that you'll catch something or spread something amongst them. And so we're trying to keep tefillah short. So one suggestion that we're going to implement in our Shachrit Minyanim when they reconvene is to have weekday Shachrit begin at Yishtabach and Shabbat Shachrit begin at Nishmat, and have Brachot and Psukkah de Zimra be recited entirely at home or on your way to shul or in shul quietly, but not as part of the communal tefillah. And that's a way, again, to sort of add efficiency, that this is not something that's led by a chazan, even though typically it would be, I guess, a pace would be set by a chazan. But it's not core to the tefillah b'tzibur, and so it's eliminated. We're trying to, it's not eliminated. It's transferred to the responsibility of the individuals to say.
Yeah, I mean, and what's funny is like we are meeting for Kabbalat Shabbat, even though we're not saying Psukkah is like there's a little bit of like inconsistency there of like that reflects on our sense of like what is like essential to this gathering that we're doing right now.
I guess if we're there for mincha anyway, so the added piyutim of or tehillim of Kabbalat Shabbat is probably, maybe that doesn't add quite as time in the same way as a sort of slow, schleppy gathering on Shabbat morning as people drift in and Sukkot Zimra begins and goes on. Let's just say it on your own, say it before you come, and let's, we'll gather and when it's time for business to begin. So, I think the Rambam, I believe, explicitly says this is when the Chazan should begin leading prayers, is at the end of Sukkot Zimra. So this is not unprecedented, but it is, I guess, new for us.
Yeah, and then the other thing we've been doing is saying a Heicha Kedusha at Mincha on weekdays, which is, which like a lot of, like when I was growing up, like we always said Heicha Kedusha, and yeshivas, many yeshivas always say Heicha Kedusha, with the sense of like the trade-off between a flow Chazar Hashat and more learning Torah. You should learn more Torah and skimp on your Chazar Hashat. But I don't know, there's a little bit of loss in like never saying Modim D'Rabbanan or something like that, or like fewer amens. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a loss, and it's not what our common practice had been. But that, again, it seems really universally the guidance from Israel, from across North America, is like shorten tefillah. So, and this is a way to do that. The other thing is we're sort of limiting opportunities for people to, or typically be near each other. Kriyas Torah, as the Torah is read, you have
a huddle.
Normally you would have a whole bunch of guys huddled around the shulchan, the Balkare, the Ola, the Gabbai Shein, right? This is actually one of the things you taught the teens, right?
The like who what do they all do? Yeah.
Who's on first, right? Yeah, like
exactly.
The staging of Torah reading. It was a trivia question for Torah. I remember. That's what it was.
I taught it during Tefillah boot camp also.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Right. Who are those guys and what are they all doing? So now we sort of eliminate all of them except for the Balkare. So the Balkare is going to take the Torah out of the ark by himself. So eliminate the two men who do Pticha. The Balkari takes the Torah by himself, carries to the reading table, opens it. He'll take all the aliyot that he reads. So if it's one Balkari, then he'll take all seven. If there are, I think this Shabbat we have, 3 or 4 men are reading the double portion, but they'll each take the aliyot that they are reading. So there's no need for an Oleh to stand next to the Balkari. We eliminate the maftir aliyah because the seventh aliyah, the Bakari will get the aliyah for the seventh aliyah, so there's no need for a separate maftir. All right, the maftir aliyah, it's usually the last 3 verses or so of the seventh aliyah, and it's a way that the individual who reads the haftarah, he should also have gotten an aliyah. So we sort of will read the last few verses again. But if it's, if he read the seventh aliyah and he got that aliyah himself and took that bracha, then there's no need for a separate maftir aliyah. So that's sort of the guidance we've received.
I think my parents told me that at their shul, everyone's just reading the haftarah to themselves, to like have one fewer thing that's being like sung out loud.
Oh, that's interesting. I've been to shuls that have done that, like as their where was I? Was that
standard custom? Yeah, there's some communities that do that.
I don't know. I spent Shabbos years and years ago, like 20 years ago, in Bnei Brak, and a Shabbos morning was at a Hasidic shtibel court, whatever, and I just remember I think it was maybe the first time I had seen this, where just like there was a maftir and he said the bracha, but then everyone read the haftarah like sort of quietly at our chairs, which is.
I mean, it's better than people going to another room to drink.
Yes, indeed. Yes, it is.
Like, of the activities that could happen after the first bracha of the haftarah and before the last bracha of the haftarah, I can think of worse things than everyone sitting there reading the haftarah.
Well, I fully agree. Yeah. We're also limiting divrei Torah and sermons, and again, these are things that not only they increase time, they also are like real. I think.
But I thought everyone came to Shul Shabbos morning for the sermon. No.
We'll find out. We'll find out what they come from. I know I'm recording divrei Torah that are not. Each week fewer people watch them, so somehow I think they're getting better. But what can I tell you? But I know for myself to certainly in the space of our shul to speak in a way that there's a chance that people in the back will be audible. The type of vocal projection I think is now considered like a viral spreader, right? Because you really it's a lot.
Not to mention to like go hear someone orate who's wearing a mask. I think is kind of confusing almost.
Yeah, it is. So there's some so the shul will look different, probably for a long time, and I guess that's also something I'm sort of was thinking about, and I which I struggle to articulate, as you know, because we've corresponded about this point. There was this understanding of things are getting better in the world, and so as things get better, our tefillah will return more and more to normal. And that was like, I don't know, that was like my headspace for a long time. And so when do we get to stage 3 and when do we get to stage 4? And will it be July? Will it be September? But whatever it is, there'll be a point where just there's like there's sort of a very linear progression of things getting better. And as things get better, our like ritual life returns closer to normal. And that doesn't seem to be how things are working, right? I think it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps back, 1 step forward. Probably depends on the part of the country and which month we're in, and it's like it's a very confusing mess. And so I don't know that we're necessarily. I don't think we're. I wouldn't want to claim. I wouldn't want to predict that we're on this step-by-step march towards greater normalcy. I think instead what we're doing is trying to find like safe places in that gray area between open and shut so that we can have a modicum of normal life and try to carve out like spaces and times and places where we can like do things that are meaningful for us in ways that are safe given this new reality, which is not going to go away in a simple step-by-step gradual way, but is going to be a much more messy and probably long drawn out process, right? So that's why I see what we're doing now, this outdoor tefillah. And even when we go indoors, it'll be limited numbers and very spaced out and with masks and shortened tefillah, right? It's not about like a step towards back to normal. It's about like this is something we can do right now in the midst of all of this uncertainty and disease. Like this, according to guidance, is safe in this way, we think. And so we're going to do this thing that seems safe to us now, right? As we learn more about the disease and figure out ways to live with it instead of just like waiting for it to be over. So
yeah,
that's my thought for the day. I don't know if that's compelling to you or if that's in the last few days that seemed more and more like what we're doing rather than marching in a clear pace towards something that's obviously going to come in just a matter of time.
Yeah, and I mean, what's scary is that I keep thinking back to Purim and like it's still amazing to me that what we did on Purim wasn't a super spreader event. Like this idea that we were like, oh, we know how to keep safe. Like the people serving pizza will wear gloves. Like that's what will keep us safe. It's like in retrospect, just like ludicrous, dangerous. What were we thinking? And how much we've learned since Purim about what this virus is, how it spreads, how to keep ourselves safe from it, and with an understanding that in that same amount of time going forward, we might know even more. We might look back at what we're doing now and say, wow, we thought we were being so careful and we were going above and beyond, and actually what we were doing was really dangerous. And that to me is like a very humbling feeling of like, we can't just hide under a rock, because that doesn't work. Like we can't hide under a rock forever. We're in this for the long term. And it's really dangerous to come out from under our rock. And if we could possibly stay under the rock, and some people really can, like there's a type of person who can stay under a rock for a really long time. Like seems clear to me, at least, like that's the safest way to be. And really, like as we go about this business of like putting lives together in this world where it is not safe, I don't know, there's just like a lot of humility and a lot of openness to like, we're doing something now, and it really could be that we're going to look back on this and say this was a dangerous thing and we made a horrible mistake.
I really hope not. I really hope that we're making decisions in such a way that we won't regret doing things that were subsequently reckless. But
you don't look back on Purim and say that was so reckless?
We were lucky. Purim. Reckless. I don't know. Reckless implies
it wasn't willful.
It was ignoring knowledge that we had. We didn't have knowledge. We didn't, so I don't think we had enough knowledge to. Like, I think we made a responsible choice given the knowledge that we had about the degree of spread of COVID at that time. So I don't think it's reckless. I regret not shutting the shul down sooner. Right. I think that's, and I'm grateful beyond words that it seems that nobody caught the disease on Purim in our shul, or right in our shul at least, and right. That's yeah, but. I don't know. Having talked to the doctors, and I don't know. I think everything we're doing now, I feel a greater degree of confidence. Like even in there's a lot of, I feel more confident that what we're doing now is safe than I felt at Purim. I would say that. And if anything, I look back and think, yeah, maybe we could have had outdoor tefillah, 3 months ago, right? Maybe we never had to stop that. Maybe there's a way we could, but we didn't know. And there was an educational value. I think part of why we shut down shul is to demonstrate the seriousness of the disease, right? Like, obviously, you're not going to arrange a play date for your child because the shul shut down. Like, obviously, you're not going to have, right? I don't know, like a babysitter, whatever, or come into your home, and right. Obviously, you're not going to be lax about some other thing connected to your work or whatever, some other risky behavior because the shul shut down. I think there's like it's a way to demonstrate to the community the seriousness to which we hope everyone takes protecting each other's lives in this way. So I think that's a reason why it was good that we shut. But I don't know, maybe we could have been davening outdoors all along. I don't know, right? And so that's the uncertainty that seems more.
We could have been davening outdoors if we had known not to be singing, and if we had known, like there's so much that we know now that we didn't know.
You're right. That's true.
But I guess what I feel is just that going forward, there's so much that we're going still to learn, and that's very humbling to me.
Yeah. Humbling and terrifying, and we're gonna have to make mistakes and be honest about that, and sort of and respond, shift as we learn more. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's a double portion this week. It is like, and they're like very full parshiot with many topics and matters, and big and small, but let's hear a nice word.
So just something that was on my mind as we've been returning to davening together, but in this kind of distanced, kind of awkward way, is that when Bilam eventually does kind of say something, what he says a bracha, and it's longer than what we normally think about it, but the part that gets quoted the most is Ma tovu alach Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael. How goodly are your tents, Jacob, your dwellings, Israel. And the classic midrash on what that means, what he's seeing and what he's responding to and what he's blessing the Israelite camp for, is that they're openings of the tents, no one's opening looked into anyone else's opening. So they were near each other, but they were also private. They were also covered. They were also socially distanced in appropriate ways. And this verse, Matavo Yaakov, is it's a verse you say when you walk into shul in the morning. That's like when you enter into the Beit Knesset. That's the scripted emotion that you're kind of supposed to have when you walk into shul in the morning and you say, "Oh my gosh, this gathering of the Jewish people with which I am starting my day. Like, how amazing is that? How goodly are your tents?" And so it's when we say that now on our way into, we're having our first shacharit on Shabbat. And so when we say that on Shabbat morning, as we enter the, glorious ASBI parking lot at 9:15, I think there's like this interesting moment of yes, like we're together and we're even more kind of private and in our own separate spaces than ever before. But what is that a symbol of? For Bilam, that was a symbol of modesty and strong family life. And for us, that's a symbol of I care about you, I care about the health and safety of our community, and that's why I'm wearing a mask, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's, even though I'm like breathing in my own exhale, even though whatever. Really helps if you brush your teeth before putting on a mask. Then, but what I'm doing it for is for the well-being of our collective and of our like communal tents together. So that's just like something I've been carrying with me.
That's really powerful. That's really great. So I thanks for sharing that idea, and welcome back to the podcast. This is with a lot of bittersweet feelings, like a sort of a short time we have you back after your maternity leave before you move on to other ventures and take leave of the shul. But it's really great to have you back on the podcast. So just share what's it like being a parent in this time of COVID? What's it like? What's a maternity leave like when everyone's on lockdown? How is? I mean, I guess you can't compare it to normal times, but
yeah, I was gonna say like I don't know any other, but well, first of all, I want to say like this is a very like ASBI themed like labor. People who are following along at home might have noticed that I was like running the ASBI Yom HaAtzmaut Zoom event, and then like the next morning had a baby. So I didn't know at the time that I was in labor, but apparently I was, and apparently that's what labor feels like. Who knew?
You just thought it was excitement for Hakamat Medina.
Exactly. That's what it is. I was just so thrilled that the state of Israel exists that I went into labor. And anyway, so that night,
Chevle Mashiach and the Chevle Leida. It's like
exactly. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So anyway, but that night I was admitted to apprentice, but you don't get admitted to apprentice. They keep you in triage until you get a COVID test. So that was like introduction to motherhood in a pandemic. For those of you who have not had the privilege of having a COVID test yet, it feels like they're tickling your brain. It's extremely uncomfortable, but totally worth it if you need to get tested. But I know there's like a lot of, thank God, B'Shah Tova to everyone. There's like a lot of pregnant people in our community and pregnant listeners, and I just want to say, like, Ethan was with me the whole time, and it was really fine, and that part was actually, like, the hospital actually felt like quite safe, and the part that's been hard is afterwards. Like, you have a bris that's like me, Ethan, our baby, and Rabbi Turkel Tab, and like a bunch of like our family on Zoom, and like that was it. And that like we just envisioned sharing the moment with all of you and buying you a bagel. And like
you did share the moment with a lot of us over that lovely Zoom session, but I do feel like I'm owed a bagel. And but
yeah. Well, actually, so what you're referring to was the naming, which was not the bris.
That's
we
right.
Felt like there was
correct.
an opportunity to not have everyone like watch a surgery over Zoom, and so we actually we joked that we like held a simchat bat for our son. Which we kind of did, right? Like that's the model of like have a public naming celebration without any surgery, and we are so grateful to be able to share that with everyone. But again, like it doesn't have the same energy of a room full of your friends and family and So that was really tough and really hard, especially because what I always like knew it in my head, but didn't know it like viscerally. Like as a person who's just pushed a baby out of their body, like getting to events 8 days later is like not trivial. So to then do that twice because we had the bris and then on Sunday we had the naming was a lot. And to not then get the energy from actually seeing other people in real life was was a little bit of a downer. But yeah, and then just the other piece is like you don't have people taking care of you. We felt so loved and supported by the community through meals, but like in an ideal world someone would have been here to like fold our laundry, and that didn't happen. And that's actually hard because like I found a lot of in this like new stage of my life, I found a lot of comfort in the idea that the Mishnah sees nursing as like a domestic labor, like as work, similar to like cooking and spinning thread and things like that. And what that means then is like you bring a child into your home and like your level of domestic labor like skyrockets. And stuff you used to do that wasn't a big deal all of a sudden is like the tipping point. So yeah, I've been reflecting a lot on just like how much work there is and how much easier it might be if other people were around to do it for you.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I think there's always a lot of work, but it's. I mean, I think I've been for all the people who've had to the good events and the sad events, that like the births and the deaths and the weddings and the bar mitzvahs and all the various like life cycle events that we've like developed over centuries, ways to share with each other and celebrate with each other and just support one another and to mourn with one another and all of these things that we've gotten so good at and display such psychological insight in these systems that are from Sinai and from Minhag and that just have come together in these things that we know. And those aren't available to people, even though people are, babies are still being born and people are still getting married and people still die, unfortunately. And we sort of have to make our way as best we can. I have such, compassion for people in those situations, even in the best of circumstances, just trying to navigate these momentous events without the tools that our tradition has typically prepared for them. So,
yeah. Like what we've been through is nothing compared to the people who suffered loss and not found the comfort in community that you're kind of like owed in that moment. I don't know, it's terrible.
Yeah. But your son seems to be not aware of what he's missing out on. He seems to be doing well, thank God. And
thank God.
It looks like a cheerful little boy in all the pictures. So.
Those are the ones we show you.
Right. Yeah, look, they're very trainable. That's what I have to tell you about infants. They're very trainable. It just takes time. So welcome back to Shul, and welcome back to the podcast. I think we have at least one more podcast episode to record together in your official tenure as an employee of Anshe Shalom, and then we'll hopefully invite you back as a guest in some future occasions, multiple future occasions when we're able to schedule that. But it's really great to talk to you again for the podcast, and I'm looking forward to making the most of our final days as colleagues within ASBI before we become broader colleagues serving Klal Yisrael more generally.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Straw Hat. Thank you as always to our producer, Haley Leventhal. Thank you to our listeners for having me back. I know I've been away for a while. Sorry, just had a baby. If you loved what you hear, feel free to send us a note or an email or a voice note, or you can like write it out by hand and put it in the mail because the mail is still running. And if you did not like what you heard, then you can try and sign up as the 16th person to come to Minyan and see how that goes for you. Just kidding. It won't go well. Anyways, hope you have a wonderful week. Thanks for listening.